Record should reflect that the jury is back in the courtroom. Dr. Doberson, I remind you that you're still under oath. And Ms. Pearson, you may resume your direct examination.
Dr. Doberson, did you do a second autopsy on July 20th of 2012?
I did.
And who was the person that you conducted the second autopsy on?
That was Alexander Boeck.
And do you know what time you began Mr. Boeck's autopsy?
It was about 2:30 in the afternoon.
I'm going to hand you what have been marked as People's Exhibits 2515, 2606, 2607, 2608, 3039, and 3040. Do you recognize those as photographs from the autopsy of Alexander Boeck?
I do.
Your Honor, I'd move for the admittance of People's Exhibits 2515, 2606 through 2608, 3039, and 3040.
Is it 3040 or 30? Yes, 3040. Thank you.
No additional objection.
Okay. Based on my previous rulings in amended order D98B, the exhibits are admitted to the extent that there has been any objection to them. To the extent that there was no objection in motion D98 or any other motion in the past, then they're admitted without objection. So that's P-TR-2515, 2606 through 2608 inclusive, and 3039 and 3040. And they may all be published.
Was his body x-rayed as part of the autopsy?
It was.
Could I have 2515, please? What do we see in this photograph?
Well, these are, as you mentioned, x-rays were taken, and these are x-rays of the head, chest, and the left side of the body. I'm sorry, the right side.
2606, please. Was there anything you could observe in this particular x-ray?
Yes, in this particular x-ray, this is obviously an x-ray of the head, and you can see various round, dense foreign bodies, and these represent shot from a shotgun blast.
2607. What do you observe in this?
This is an x-ray of the chest, and as you can see, the same projectiles are present in the chest and also in the right shoulder.
2608. What are we looking at in this one?
Well, this, I think this is reversed. We're still looking at the right side. Again, you see some of these shots, and I'm just putting the pointer by one of them, but they're present in the chest and the right arm.
You can take that down. Did you do an external exam?
Yes.
What did you observe on the external exam?
The main injury here was a shotgun injury to the right side of the head, probably from the same shotgun blast. The right arm, right shoulder, and right chest were also injured.
Were photographs taken of his body during the autopsy but prior to the time of the internal exam?
Yes.
If I could have 3039, please. Is this Mr. Boeck?
It is.
And do you see the shotgun blast to his head in this one?
Well, for the most part, you just see blood. The actual shotgun type injuries are to the right side of his head.
3040, please. What do you see in this photograph?
This was taken at a later time during the autopsy, and the actual shotgun wounds are more visible. Again, you can see them on the right side of the head, face, shoulder, and chest, as well as the arm.
You can take that down. Did you do an internal exam as well?
Yes.
What did you discover during the internal exam portion of the autopsy?
Well, during the internal exam, there were some injuries to the right lung. Some of those shot did penetrate his chest. For the most part, the most severe injury was the shotgun injuries to the head. Some of the pellets did extend into his skull and injured the brain.
Was shot pellet recovered from his autopsy?
Yes.
Were you able to determine, based on the injuries that you saw, what kind of a firearm caused his injuries?
Yes, this was a shotgun.
And would you step down to the mannequin to describe the path that the pellets took in his body?
Well, as I think you can see from the photographs, the shotgun blast came from the right side. There were quite a few pellets that were entering his head, face, and the neck as well. And then there were a few that entered the arm, the chest, and the shoulder. The pellets to the chest did penetrate and injure his right lung, but the most severe injury was to his head.
Were you able to determine a cause and manner of death for A.J. Boyk?
Yes.
What was the cause of death?
The cause of death were head injuries due to a shotgun wound to the head.
And the manner of death?
Homicide.
Did you do a third autopsy on July 20th of 2012?
I did.
And who was that?
That was Matthew McQuinn.
What time did you begin that autopsy?
That was at 4:45 p.m.
I'm going to hand you what have been marked as People's Exhibits 2520, 2521, 2620, 2621, 2622, 2623, 2624, 2625, 2626, 2627, 2628, 3041, 3042, 3043, and 3045. Are these all photographs that were taken during the autopsy of Matt McQuinn on July 20th of 2012?
Yes.
Your Honor, I would move for the admittance of People's Exhibits 2520, 2521, 2620 through 2628, and 3041 through 3043, and 3045.
Any objection?
No additional objection.
All right, to the extent that there has been an objection to any of these exhibits, I rely on my rulings in amended order D98B, as there is no additional objection. To the extent that there has been no objection and there is no objection, then these exhibits are admitted without objection. So P-TR-2520, 2521, 2620 through 2628 inclusive, 3041 through 3043 inclusive, and 3045 are all admitted and may all be published.
Was his body x-rayed as you've done with the others?
Yes.
Could I have 2520, please? Is this an overall x-ray of all of the parts of his body? Or some of them, rather?
It is, and again, goes from the head to the abdomen, and you can see various, for example, a pair of glasses is evident here on the head x-ray, and a necklace here about the neck. But for the most part, we see a lot of foreign material. These are projectile pieces, and they're present in the chest and the abdomen as well.
2521, please. What does this depict?
These are the lower extremities, and it's difficult to see, and this was kind of a difficult case. You can see some projectiles here. Here's one, for example, on the left leg, and also you can see here on the right leg there's a fracture of the fibula, which I have the pointer next to.
2620. What do you observe in this photograph of the x-ray?
Well, this is an x-ray of the head, and there's really no projectiles that are noted here. There was a gunshot wound to the neck, but it's not visible here, and it was only associated with a few projectiles.
2621. So was there anything that you observed in this photograph?
Well, here, right at the center, near the spine, I have the pointer on it, is a bullet fragment, a conical-shaped, a cone-shaped bullet fragment. And then over the shoulder, you can see a few other projectiles, and these were all recovered at the autopsy.
2622.
Again, very similar, just projectiles here in the right chest cavity. Also, you can see evidence of some soft tissue injury here along the right arm. Or I'm sorry, this is actually the left arm. Some of these are turned around, but you can see the soft tissue injury here on the right arm.
2623.
This is the same.
2624.
This is the left arm, and you can see the humerus has been fractured, and it's associated with a lot of projectile fragments.
2625.
This is an x-ray of the abdomen, and once again, projectiles that were recovered. All in all, there were 9 gunshot wounds that Mr. McQuinn sustained.
2626.
This is the same.
2627.
And these are the lower extremities. You could see the areas of the knee at the top. Once again, he sustained 5 gunshot wounds to the lower extremities. Some were through and through, and some were associated with projectiles.
2628.
This is the fracture of the fibula that I've mentioned before. It's the right leg.
Did you do an external exam?
I did.
What did you observe on the external exam?
As I mentioned before, all in all, there were at least 9 gunshot wounds that he sustained. The most severe was a gunshot wound to the neck. It entered on the left side, went through the neck, and was associated with transections or injuries of all of the major blood vessels in the neck. The other wound that was very severe was a wound to the chest, and that entered at the right upper chest and came out the left side of the chest. It also injured the left arm, and this was associated with with very severe injuries to the internal organs, both lungs and the aorta, which is the major artery of the chest.
And were there photos taken of his body prior to the beginning of the internal autopsy as well?
Yes.
Could I have 3041, please? Do you see injuries in this photograph?
You do, and you can see on the right side of the neck, this is actually the exit wound for the wound that I just described. It enters the left side of the neck, exits the right side. It's associated with, again, very severe injuries.
3042.
This is the exit wound to the gunshot wound to the chest that I just described. It does traverse the chest, comes out here in the left armpit region, and then it also enters the left arm. And this was also associated with the fracture of the left humerus, which I'm roughly pointing to.
3043.
This is our wounds to his right lower extremities. Actually, both lower extremities had them, but these are gunshot-associated injuries to his right thigh.
3045.
This, I believe, we talked about.
You can take that down. Now, you discussed somewhat some of your findings on the internal exam. Were there other findings that you made when you did the internal exam of Mr. McQuinn?
Only injuries related to the gunshot wounds that I just described.
Were you able to determine what kind of firearm caused all of his injuries?
I believe all of the injuries were attributable to a rifle.
And if you could approach the mannequin and describe the path of the injuries, please.
I'll just describe the individual so many wounds. I'll just describe the main ones again.
Why don't we have him use the microphone?
Oh, I'm sorry. The most severe wounds, there were two of them. One was to the neck again, and the entrance wound is on the left side of the neck. The exit is on the right. The other wound to the chest, the entrance wound was here on the right side of the chest. It traverses the chest, comes out the left side of the chest, and was also associated with an injury to the left arm. There were other wounds, at least 5 wounds to his lower extremities, and one wound to his back, and several to the abdomen, and 9 altogether, 2 of them being the cause of death.
What did you determine the cause of death was for Matthew McQuinn?
In this case, severe internal injuries due to gunshot wounds to the neck and chest.
And the manner of death?
Homicide.
Did you do any other autopsies on July 20th of 2012?
No.
Did you continue to conduct autopsies on July 21st of 2012?
We did, yes.
Whose was the first autopsy that you did on July 21st?
The first one was Rebecca Wingo, and that was done at 9:50 a.m. on July 21st.
I'm going to hand you what have been marked as People's Exhibits 25, 27, 26, 39, 26, 40, 26, 41, 26, 42, 48, 71, 48, 72, 48, 73, 30, 46, 30, 47, 3048, and 3049. Do you recognize those photographs as being photographs taken during the autopsy of Rebecca Wingo?
I do.
Your Honor, I'd move for the admittance of People's Exhibits 2527, 2639 through 2642, 4871 through 4873, 3046 through 3049.
Ms. Brady?
No additional objection.
To the extent that some of these exhibits have been objected to before, I stand by my rulings in amended order D98B, and so they are admitted for those reasons. To the extent that some of these exhibits were not objected to in the past, and they are admitted without objection. So P-TR-2527, 2639 through 2642 inclusive, 4871 through 4873 inclusive, and 3046 through 3049 inclusive are all admitted and may be published.
Could I have 2527, please? What is this a photograph of?
Well, these are all photographs of the, taken before the autopsy of Rebecca Wingo, going from the head to the upper extremities and the chest.
2639, please?
Well, this is a radiograph of the head, and as you can see, it's a relatively complex situation. We have at least two different projectiles here. We have projectiles that I'm pointing to here on the side of the head that are consistent with the shotgun injuries we've described previously. Also, towards the front of the face, we can see very irregularly shaped projectiles, which are likely from a rifle. So there were two different weapons that impacted Ms. Wingo.
2640?
These were X-rays taken of the chest, and actually what you see here for the most part is an underwire bra. These curved structures are the underwire for the bra. There was a gunshot wound to the chest that was actually, where the bullet was actually embedded in the left underwire of the bra, and that's seen right here, right at the pointer. And just, it might be confusing, but this area on the back is simply the clips on the back of the bra.
2641?
It's the same.
2642?
This is just a radiograph of the abdomen, and there are no projectiles that were found.
4871?
This is just a partial X-ray, it looks like, of one of the upper extremities, and it does not show any projectiles.
4872?
Same.
4873?
And this is simply an X-ray, once again showing similar features that we've seen before.
Did you do you can take that down. Did you do an external exam on Miss Wingo?
Yes.
What did you observe during the external exam?
Overall, she sustained 4 gunshot wounds. 3 of them were gunshot wounds, likely from a rifle, and the other one was a shotgun wound, as you could tell. 2 of the wounds were to the head, and there were also 2 to the abdomen.
Were photographs also taken of her?
Yes.
Could I have 3046, please? Is this a photograph of her face?
Yes.
And are there any injuries that you can see on this photograph?
Not very well, but again, on the right side of the face and head are shotgun-type wounds.
3047, please.
This is a photograph of the right side of her abdomen. Her head is to the left, her feet are to the right, and here you can see the entrance wound. Actually, there were 2 wounds to the abdomen, and none of them were really serious. They didn't enter the peritoneal cavity or the chest cavity. They were very superficial.
3048.
And I believe we're looking at her back, and it's just difficult to see. There's some foreign material here, but I believe this really doesn't show anything.
3049.
And these are shotgun-associated injuries to her right shoulder. As I mentioned, the blast was to the right side of her head. There were also some shot that entered her right shoulder.
You take that down. Did you do an internal exam as well?
Yes.
And during the internal exam, did you make any other observations?
Well, as far as what I've described before, the 2 wounds to the abdomen were very superficial, no internal injuries. The 2 wounds that were the most severe that caused her death was the shotgun wound to the right side of her head. There was also a rifle-type wound to the right side of the back of her head. I don't believe that was depicted in the pictures, but that's the source of the fragments that we saw in the X-ray of her head.
Did you recover fragments and projectiles from her body?
We did.
And could you describe the path that you observed on the mannequin, please? And the microphone you'll need to.
Yes. Again, as I just described, there were 2 gunshot wounds to the abdomen. They essentially went from right to left and didn't cause any internal injuries. The 2 most serious wounds were the wound from the shotgun to the right side of the head. There was also an entrance wound from the rifle wound that went to the right side of the head as well. Both directions were from right to left, and there were severe injuries to the brain associated with each one.
Thank you. What was the cause of Miss Wingo's death?
Severe head injuries due to gunshot wounds to the head.
And what was the manner of death?
Homicide.
Did you do a second autopsy on July 21st of 2012?
Yes, that was on Gordon Cowden, and that was done at 12 noon.
I'm handing you what have been marked as People's Exhibits 2517, 2698, 2599, 2600, 3050, 3051, 3052, and 3053. Do you recognize all of those photographs?
I do.
And were they taken from of the X-rays and of the person of Mr. Cowden during his autopsy?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'd move for the admittance of People's Exhibits 2517, 2698, 2599, 2600, and 3050 to 3053 inclusive.
No additional objection.
Ms. Pearson, are you sure it's 2698, not 2598?
I think it is, and I'll ask Dr. Doverson to check.
I have 2598.
Okay, then that would be the correct number. So it'd be 2517, 2598, 2599, and 2600.
All right. To the extent that there has been an objection to any of these exhibits, I stand by my rulings in order amended Order D98B. To the extent that there has been no objection to these exhibits, then they are admitted without objection. So P-TR-2517, 2598 through 2600 inclusive, and 3050 through 3053 inclusive are admitted and may be published.
Was his body x-rayed as part of the autopsy?
It was.
Could I have 2517, please?
There was, in this particular case, there was only one gunshot wound, and it was to the chest. So these are just 3 different x-rays, and none of them show any projectiles.
2598.
Again, the same thing. This is an x-ray of the chest. There do appear to be some particles here, but I don't believe they were within the body. The gunshot wound mainly went from the right armpit to the left. And so this is just extraneous material, but it was a perforating wound, which means it went in and exited.
2599.
And again, this pretty much the same thing.
2600.
Same.
Did you do both internal, you can take that down, please. Did you do both an external exam and an internal exam for Mr. Cowden?
I did.
Could I have 3050, please? Is this Mr. Cowden?
This is Mr. Cowden, yes.
3051.
I'm not sure, well, this picture shows the entrance wound, and I'm trying to move the pointer to, this is the right armpit, essentially, and that is the entrance wound at the end of the pointer. The other injuries are just a bruise and scratch that he sustained, very minor.
3052.
And this is the left armpit, the back of the left armpit, and you could see the exit wound right here at the end of the pointer.
3053.
And this is another photograph of the entrance wound in the right armpit.
You can take that down. What did you discover during the internal exam of Mr. Cowden?
Well, this is, again, a single perforating gunshot wound, and it traversed the chest. It caused injuries to both lungs, the heart, and the aorta, again, the major artery of the chest.
Were you able to determine, based on the observations of his injuries, whether a rifle, a shotgun, or a handgun caused his injuries?
Because of the appearance of the x-ray and the internal examination, it looked like this was a handgun.
Can you describe the path that the bullet took, and did you only find one gunshot wound to him?
We only found one gunshot wound, and essentially it was from right to left, slightly upward.
Did you recover any kind of projectiles or fragments in his body?
No.
Did you determine a cause and manner of death for Mr. Cowden?
Yes. Severe internal injuries due to a gunshot wound to the chest.
Is that the cause of death?
That's the cause
And the
of
manner
death.
of death?
Homicide.
Did you do a third autopsy on July 21st of 2012?
I did.
And who was that?
And that was Alexander Teves, and that was done at 2 p.m. in the afternoon.
I'm going to hand you what have been marked as People's Exhibits 2526, 2603, 3054, 3055, and 3056. Are these photographs of the x-rays and of Mr. Teague's body that were taken during his autopsy on July 21st of 2012?
They are.
Your Honor, I'd move for the admittance of People's Exhibits 2526, 2603, 3054, 3055, and 3056.
Roach?
Yes. All right. The objection is partially sustained and partially overruled. Folks, I know there's a different kind of smell in here. Apparently, they were using a sealant upstairs. Perfect timing, right? But apparently, they're finished now, so hopefully, it'll get better. All right, Ms. Pearson, you may proceed. I guess I need to, I don't think I ruled on the rest of them, so let me do that now. Based on my ruling, Exhibit P-TR-2526 and P-TR-3054 are excluded. They are not admitted based on the ruling I made at the bench. With respect to the other exhibits, they are admitted either based on my ruling at the bench or based on my previous rulings in amended order D98B. All right, you may proceed.
Was Mr. Teaves' body x-rayed?
Yes, it was.
If I could have 2603, please. Could you explain what you see in this photograph?
Well, we can see a lot of fracturing of his skull, and within the calvarium or the head, you can see a number of irregular projectile fragments.
Did you, you can take that down. Did you do both an external exam and an internal exam of Mr. Teaves?
I did.
On the external exam, what did you observe?
In this case, there was also only one gunshot wound, and it was sustained to the head, as you could see from the x-ray. It was on the right side of the head, near the top of the head, and it was directed essentially downwards and front to back.
Were photographs taken?
Yes.
Could I have 3055, please? Does that show the wound to his head?
It does. You could see here, again, on the left side of the head is a large wound.
And 3056, please. And was this Mr. Teaves?
It is.
You can take that down. Did you recover projectiles during his autopsy?
We did.
Based on the injury that you observed, could you tell what kind of a firearm caused this injury, whether it was a rifle, a shotgun, or a handgun?
It was caused by a rifle.
Did you determine a cause and manner of death for Mr. Teaves?
I did.
What was the cause of death?
It's severe head injuries due to a gunshot wound to the head.
And what was the manner of death?
Homicide.
Thank you, Dr. Doberson. I don't have any more questions.
Ms. Brady, do you have any cross-examination?
No, sir, thank you.
And the jury does not appear to have any questions for Dr. Doberson. May Dr. Doberson be released from his subpoena?
He may.
Is there any objection?
No, sir.
Dr. Doberson, thank you.
Thank you.
Call your next witness, please.
People call Gargi Nada.
Good afternoon. Could I have you raise your right hand for me, please, so that I can administer an oath? You solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of law that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
All right, please be seated. Okay, yes. Could you remove the mannequin, please? Thank you. Could you please tell us your full name and spell your first, middle, and last names?
My name is Gargi Datta, Gargidatta.
Mr. Brockler, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. And would you please tell us what you do for a living?
I'm a graduate student in computational biology at University of Colorado.
Do you know this guy right over here, seated in between these two women with the beard and the mustache? And the
Yes.
How do you know him?
I knew him from school. He went to school with me at University of Colorado.
I want to talk to you about the time that you met him all the way through when you last spoke with him, okay? First off, are you nervous?
Yes.
I understand. First, tell me when you first met the defendant.
I first met the defendant at orientation in August 2011.
And was that at the Anschutz campus of the University of Colorado?
Yes, it was.
What was that interaction like?
I do not remember really having an interaction with him. He sat at the same table as us at orientation, but I do not remember talking to him.
When you say us, who is us?
I know Ben Garcia was there. I don't remember anyone else who was there on that table.
Did you make any observations of the defendant in August of 2011?
Just that he was wearing bright blue sunglasses.
Okay.
Really bright blue sunglasses, yeah.
When was the next time you remember having any more significant contact with the defendant?
Sometime in September 2011, in classes together, we all graduate students at Anschutz Medical Campus take this core biology class together, and we were in the same class.
And what was the period of time that you were in class together?
We were in the core class from September to December 2011, and another neuroscience class from January to May 2012.
What was that second class you mentioned?
I believe it's called Biological Basis of Neurological Disorders, something of that sort.
And that lasted pretty much that entire second semester, if I'm using the right term?
Yes.
Now, at the time that you guys first had that class together back in September of 2011, how did you end up getting to know him any better than you had at the orientation in August?
The defendant sat behind us in class, so you usually in that class interact with people around you, and he sat behind us, so we got to talking. I don't remember the specific instance, though.
By the time that you had started talking to the defendant, had you already made some other relationships or friends at the Anschutz campus?
Yes.
Were they also in that class?
Yes.
Tell us who they are.
So the people who sat together were Ben Garcia, Tim Tapscott, and Charlotte Siska sometimes sat with us, and sometimes Emily Busta sat with us.
That last name, Charlotte, what was the last name?
Siska.
Can you spell that? Do you know?
Siska.
Okay, Siska. Okay, thank you. And do you remember the setting when you first started having a conversation with the defendant? And my question is going to be after that is, who started talking to whom first?
I do not remember who started talking to whom first, yeah.
Okay, and what was that like? What other observations did you make of the defendant in those early days of your class together in September?
He seemed shy and quiet. He seemed to take notes in class. Before I started talking to him, those were the observations I made.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And when you started talking, was it about anything in particular or just the class that you were in?
The first conversation I remember having with him is talking about a study session that a big group of people in that class used to go to, and inviting him to the study session.
Did he seem open to it?
Yes.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness
Yes.
with what has been marked as People's Exhibit 1243. Ma'am, take a look at that. And if you recognize what that is, would you tell us what it is?
Yes. I believe to invite him to the study sessions which we used to have at different places, different coffee shops around Denver. To tell him where it was going to be next, I took his number and gave him a missed call. And apparently it did not go through, so he found my email address and emailed me, giving me his number again so I could tell him where the study session was.
This People's Exhibit 1243, is this that email that you recall receiving?
Yes.
And this is a fair and accurate copy of the email that you received from the defendant on September 23rd, 2011?
Yes.
Doesn't look like it's been changed in any way?
No.
Your Honor, I'm going to move for the admission of 1243 into evidence, please.
Any objection?
I don't have an objection. If we could perhaps have her put her name on there so that later we know who this was sent to, since it doesn't have any to information.
Do you have any objection, Mr. Brocker, to
Not
her
at all,
putting her
sir.
name on there?
I think it's a good idea.
Okay, let's do that. With that then, P-TR-12, is it 1243?
Yes, sir.
All right, 1243 is admitted.
Can you, using your best print, write your name at the top of that, just so that we... Do you have a pen? I can get one for you.
This one here.
Okay. And you know what? Do me a favor. Why don't you add today's date under there, just so that we remember when you testified? Do you know what it
Today
is?
is the 10th, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Done.
Thank you. Your Honor, I'm going to move for publication of 1243. It'll obviously be without the name and the date on it.
That request is granted.
Now, other ma'am, can you blow up the part next to subject? No, not that. After you see says, oh, that's not it. Ma'am, look at subject and it says 2117. When it gets to all next to whatever that is, begins with hey girl. Can you put that up for us? Is this what he typed to you in the subject?
Apparently.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then can you give us just the rest of the text, the body of it? Now this right here, it says that, and he gives you his cell phone number. Is that the cell phone number you came to know belonging to the defendant?
I believe so. I don't remember his cell phone number, but I had only one, so.
And would you have put it in your phone so you didn't have to look it up ever again?
Yes.
Okay. And did he ever tell you the best ever world's greatest knock-knock joke?
I do not remember him telling me that.
Is this writing style and sort of the way he injects humor into it, is this consistent with how he communicated with you in writing throughout the time that you communicated with him in writing?
For the most part.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, after you guys had ended up exchanging cell phone numbers, did he end up going to that study session with you?
I don't exactly remember, but as far as I remember, he did.
Tell us the progression of how it went from we're two people in class doing study sessions together to something more.
So we started interacting more, and he and Ben Garcia became friends too. So the three of us started hanging out more, and I believe he asked me out on a date. I don't remember who asked whom out on a date, but yeah.
Would it be out of character for you to have asked him?
No,
But you just can't remember.
I just can't remember.
Do you remember what that first date was?
We went to a film festival in Denver,
What kind of film festival?
a horror film festival.
That's romantic. Did you do anything else before or after?
We grabbed dinner at some point. I do not remember if it was before or after.
Do you remember what period of time that was in terms of September, October?
Sometime in October.
After that, did you begin to see each other, and I'm going to use the term romantically, you tell me if that's wrong, romantically more often?
Yes. We would hang out together once or twice a week, maybe.
And when you hung out, what does that mean to us?
So we would go out or stay in and watch a movie and grab dinner, etc.
When you'd watch a movie, something that you would rent or something off of Netflix?
Netflix mostly, I would say.
Okay. And when you went out to dinner, any place in particular?
No particular place jogs my memory. There were, yeah.
Did you continue to hang out as a group with, you told us he became friends with a man named Ben Garcia. You'd also previously mentioned Tim Tapscott. Did you guys continue to do things together?
Yes, the four of us did things together often.
Tell us about him.
So we went on a hike to Dinosaur Ridge once. We used to play board games together often, the four of us, and also went for movies and stuff together.
You said you played board games together. Tell us what kind of board games you played.
Judge, I'm going to object to relevance.
Overruled?
Go ahead.
So I know we played Dominion, which is almost a card game kind of board game.
What is it? A strategy game? Is it a luck
So
game?
if you know Magic cards, it's pretty similar but much faster. It's a strategy card game almost. So they have their own custom cards, and it's a strategy card game. Yes.
Where would you guys play?
We would rotate between different people's places. Like, yeah.
Now, during this time, it sounds like you had the opportunity to observe him both at school and in places with just you and places with this group of a couple other people. Is that fair?
Yes.
I want to ask you to describe how the defendant's demeanor or presentation was in each of those. First, at school. How was he at school?
He was pretty shy and closed off at school. He wouldn't go interact with other people by himself at school.
And by interact, did you ever see him go up to someone and initiate a conversation with them?
Not that I remember.
Would he respond if someone approached him with a conversation?
Yes.
How was he in terms of interacting in that smaller group of, it sounds like, better friends, Ben and Tim and you?
I would say he was more forthcoming than he was in school, but he still wasn't extremely interactive.
How about when it was just you and he?
He would talk a decent amount then, yeah.
And was that a marked difference between what you saw when you were with him by yourself versus how you saw him in the classroom and at school?
A marked difference between those two, yes.
In each of those three settings, did you ever see him show a wide range of emotion, or was it pretty flat still?
He never had highs and lows of emotion ever, no. He was pretty calm for the most part and friendly if people interacted with him.
Now, did you get a sense of his sense of humor? And we saw some of it in the very first communication he had with you in an email.
In person, his sense of humor was, sometimes his jokes fell flat in person, and yeah.
What does that mean, his jokes sometimes fell flat?
So, I guess the best way I can describe it, sometimes in person when he made a joke, other people wouldn't laugh at it, or there would be forced laughs.
Did you perceive why that was? Was it the substance of the joke or just the delivery?
I don't exactly remember, but I'd say both maybe.
Now, did you discern a difference between how he was in person with a sense of humor and how he was in writing?
Yeah, his sense of humor in writing was mostly pretty funny.
Did he seem quick-witted to you?
In writing, yes.
Now, during this time now, we've started to talk about October and we're moving forward and you spent more time together. Is it still just the 1 to 2 times per week?
Yes, we had a pretty stressful class together 5 days a week and 8 a.m., so it was really hard to hang out during the week, really.
How did he seem to do in those classes?
From what he told me, it was about average back then, yeah.
Tough classes?
Very tough classes.
Okay. How big were these classes that you were in?
All the graduate students were in there, so I want to say around 60, 70 people, but I'm not sure.
Now, one thing that might happen as you become closer to someone romantically is you start hanging out on holidays together. Did you start doing that?
I don't remember anything about Thanksgiving. On Christmas, I was out of town.
Okay. Now, during the period between and Halloween, nothing?
I don't remember. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Yeah.
Between October and the end of that first portion of your first graduate year, did you grow closer together?
We grew closer in November and December, I would say. Somewhat closer, yes.
What sort of things would you talk about when you would share?
We mostly talked about school. In December, he talked a bit about his family.
Okay. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to be indelicate here, but did you ever get to the point where you began to have a physically intimate relationship with the defendant?
Yes.
Okay. Did he ever express to you that that was his first physically intimate relationship?
No.
In fact, did he tell you something different than that?
Yes. He told me that he had grown intimate with someone in camp. I believe in undergraduate, but I don't exactly remember.
And did he tell you where he went to undergraduate school?
I think UC Riverside. Not sure.
Okay. During this time also, did you begin to communicate other than just in person with each other?
On chat, Google Chat, and sometimes to make plans on text messaging.
All right, text messaging you mean by using your cell phones?
Yes,
And was that frequent or infrequent?
not that frequent.
What was the second most frequent form of communication other than talking face-to-face?
Google Chat, so IMing each other, instant messaging each other on Google.
Okay. And did that, once that started, did that continue pretty regularly through the time that you were together?
Yeah,
Was there any other way that did you ever talk on the phone much?
not much, no.
All right. As you approached the Christmas break, did you get some time off that you got to leave the school?
Yes,
Him too?
yes,
Did you guys stay in touch over that break?
yes.
And you didn't spend New Year's together?
No, I was out of town.
Do you remember about when you came back?
I would have been early January sometime.
Him too?
Yes,
And did you start back up again kind of where you'd left off in December?
yes.
Was it different at all?
I was getting distant from him.
Why?
I had already told him in the start it would be a casual relationship, and I did not really feel much closer with him, so I wanted to break up with him.
Did you have a sense of how he felt towards you?
I think he liked me more than I liked him, but we didn't talk about it. So.
When he came back from, did you know where he went, by the way?
California to visit his family.
When he came back, did you spend time again together as you had before?
I don't remember exactly, but I might have reduced spending time with him a bit.
Do you ever remember him telling you that he had gotten mononucleosis?
No,
Given the status of your relationship, do you think you'd remember if he'd had
definitely,
kissing disease?
definitely, yeah.
Okay, and never mentioned that to
He
you?
never mentioned that to me.
Did you observe any signs in him that he was suffering from some sort of illness, sickness, disease?
I mean, he might have gotten a cold once in a while, but everyone does, yeah.
Okay. So we're moving now through January. Has he talked to you at all about where he is with his rotations and his studies?
I believe what he said was his first rotation went well, and he was thinking of joining that lab. His second rotation wasn't going so well. So that's what he told me.
Okay. And this continues on until, how long do you guys continue to see each other before things change?
We kept dating until mid to end of February. I don't remember the exact date.
Did
But
you say mid to end of February?
yes.
Okay. And do you remember how it ended?
Yes, I don't remember if I texted him or called him, but I told him that I needed to talk to him. I went over and told him that I don't see a future with him, and thus I'm breaking up with him.
You went over to his place?
Yes.
Now, let me ask you some questions about that. How often would you go over to the defendant's apartment?
Maybe once a week.
Okay, and if you guys spent the night together, would it be there or your place or both?
I think both.
Describe for us the cleanliness level of the defendant's apartment.
His living room and his kitchen were extremely clean. He didn't like leaving dishes in the sink at all. His bedroom had clothes all around, so it was pretty messy.
Okay, in the times that you spent together, did you ever notice anything negative or different about his hygiene or the way he dressed or any of those issues?
No.
And was he consistent in that from the first time you saw him till the last time you saw him?
Yes.
At his apartment, when you two would sleep, since you would know, did you have trouble sleeping during this stressful graduate school year?
Yes.
Did he too?
I believe so.
Okay. Now you talked about these G-chats. And have you had a chance to look at them, by the way?
Yes.
All right. Now, Your Honor, with the court's permission, I'd like to approach with what's been marked as 649.
You may.
Thank you.
Ma'am, I'm handing you what's been marked as 649, and you know we were just talking about the G-chats, the Gmail chats. Have you had a chance previously to look at this exhibit?
Yes.
And does this contain the Gmail chats between you and the defendant over the period of time that you had a relationship?
Yes.
In fact, does it actually go a little bit past when you had a relationship?
Yes.
Now, you've had a chance to go through there. Is that a fair and accurate representation of the and let me just ask, what's the right way to call it? Is it G-chat, Gmail chat, Google chat?
G-chat or Google chat, both work.
Okay, G-chat. Are these the fair and accurate copy of the G-chats that you had with the defendant?
Yes.
Do these G-chats also give us a glimpse into the communication style that the defendant had over the period of time that's covered here from roughly October through the end of March?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'm going to move for the admission of People's Exhibit 649 into evidence.
Any additional objection?
No additional objection, and again, I would request that she put her name on there.
Okay.
Thank
Any
you.
objection to that?
No, I was going to do that, but
Okay.
you should beat me to it.
All right. Please put your name on there. All right.
The date
And-
as well?
Yes, ma'am?
Yes, thank you. And based on my prior ruling, P-TR-649 is admitted.
Your Honor, can we approach?
Yes. All right, members of the jury, given the time, we're going to go ahead and adjourn at this time. It's almost 5 till 5, so we'll adjourn 5 minutes early. Big break there, right? All right, I want to remind you that you can't talk about the case with each other. You can't talk about the case with anyone else. You can't talk to any witnesses, parties, or attorneys about anything. You can't talk to any members of the media about anything. You must wear your juror badges at all time when you're on the courthouse grounds. You must avoid reading, viewing, or listening to any news or media reports about the case. You cannot visit any locations mentioned in the trial. You cannot start forming any opinions about the case and must keep an open mind. You must remember that neither sympathy nor prejudice for the prosecution or the defendant may affect any of your decisions in this case. All your decisions in this case must be based solely on the evidence and information presented in the courtroom and the instructions of law that I provide to you. And you must always keep in mind that the attorneys have a job to do, and sometimes that requires them to make objections or ask to approach for a bench conference. Please don't hold it against them when they do that. And similarly, don't infer that I'm for one side or the other based on my rulings. I'm simply doing my best to apply the rules of evidence and other applicable rules of law. And then remember what I said yesterday. I added yesterday that you're not to have any contact at all with any of the jurors who are no longer part of this trial. So if any of them contacts you, you must avoid the contact and just simply say, I'm not allowed to talk to you. And delete whatever message any of them may send without reading the message, obviously. You must avoid all contact. with that, get some rest tonight, and I'll see you tomorrow morning. This is a short week, so tomorrow is our Friday, if you will. So I'll see you tomorrow morning. Thank you, folks. Ms. Data, you can leave as well. We'll see you tomorrow. Your subpoenas continue until tomorrow. You can leave that there. Thank you. All right. Please be seated, everyone. The record should reflect that the jury has exited the courtroom now. I think when I ruled on Exhibit P-TR-649 earlier, I think I kept referring to it as Gmail chat. So to the extent that I was referring to it as that, obviously I was referring to this exhibit, and I think other people have referred to it as that. But if it's Google Chat or G-Chat, the record should reflect that it's the same exhibit. Is there anything we need to talk about at this time on behalf of the prosecution? Mr. Brockler, do you have anything?
No, sir.
I do, Your
Oh,
Honor. Your Honor, I need to mark two photographs as I guess the next numbers
Here.
are going to be C-T.
why don't you state for the record what each one of them is marked as right now in terms of your exhibit, and then how each one will be marked as in terms of a court trial exhibit as a result of having been offered but not admitted.
Your Honor, People's Exhibit 2526 will be marked as C-TR-53, and People's Exhibit 3054 will be marked as C-TR-54.
Okay, thank you. Anything on behalf of the defense, Mr. King?
I do,
Ms. Fenton?
actually, Judge.
All right.
I know the court's already reviewed the crime scene video from the theater, and I just wanted to draw the court's attention to the fact that I expect that the prosecution will attempt to introduce that video tomorrow. The defense maintains its original objection. We would add a cumulative objection, and I can be more specific with where I believe the cumulative testimony lies with the witnesses. And I didn't want to know if the court wanted to re-review the video, so I'm just drawing the court's attention to it now.
I was just going to ask if I could review it again in light of the evidence that has been admitted. But if you have any specific arguments, I would like to hear them.
Sure, Judge. The defense, again, maintains its objection, and we would rely on the original arguments made in the pleading, but because we do need to supplement the record now that we're a number of weeks into trial, we do believe that it is now also cumulative to the testimony of Detective Matt Ingui, to the testimony of both APD investigators Nick Carroll and Maria Petalina. They would both testified about the evidence and the location of the physical evidence that was collected. Obviously, Detective Matt Ingui testified as to the location of the victims' bodies in the theater. And then we had a number of first responders who testified to the environment, to the scene within the theater, as well as the testimony from the victims and witnesses themselves from Theater 9.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Pearson?
Your Honor, and for the record, the crime scene video is People's Exhibit 1000. The crime scene video gives a unique picture of the theater because it begins on the outside of the theater, walking through the lobby into the theater, and gives you a different sense of how the theater looked at a time prior to it being processed, prior to the bodies of the deceased being removed, that you don't get from still photographs. It has a different kind of purpose because of that, because you get a different sense of context from it than you do from a still photograph, and especially given how early in the process it was done. Ms. Petalina and Mr. Carroll did not talk about the victims in the theater at all. The only person who did and placed them in the theater was Detective Ingui, and did that with still photographs. But to have a video that essentially walks you into the theater from outside, through the lobby, through the entrances that we've discussed, where you actually have to turn the corner to go around to get into the seats and enter into the theater itself and up through the stadium seating, is an entirely different kind of picture. Again, it is not cumulative because it is different in some respects than other evidence that we've already seen in this case. And I would respectfully ask that we be able to admit it and have it published to the jury. It's about 45 minutes in length. I do have an extra copy here, which I'm happy to provide to the court.
Please. Thank you. I have reviewed it before, but I will review it again. I know I reviewed it before issuing amended order D98B, and I know that I ruled on it in that order, but I will review it again in light of the evidence that has been admitted and in light of the arguments presented today. I meant to ask the defense if counsel is asking me to give any kind of instruction with respect to Google Chat exhibit P-TR-649 in terms of any statements by Ms. Data, so that the jury knows that those statements are being admitted only for the limited purpose of placing the defendant's statements in context and to allow those statements to be intelligible. Is the defense requesting such an instruction?
Yes, sir.
All right. I will give that instruction. Please remind me tomorrow if I forget. And then same request or same question with respect to exhibit P-TR-1227. Is the defense making a request for a similar instruction in terms of the statements in those emails, in that exhibit, that are not made by the defendant or that were not made by the defendant? Ms. Pedway?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. I will give it as well. Please remind me about that if I forget. By the way, I indicated yesterday when I denied Mr. King's request to poll the jurors one by one, all 24 or 21 jurors one by one, in terms of whether they had heard any statements from any other juror about the case. I denied that request, but I said that I would include in my advisements at the end of the day that they have to tell me if they hear a statement about the case, even if it's from another juror. And I said that I would include that they should tell me even if that's happened before, and I did include that, so I wanted to make a record of that. I know that that doesn't, in the defense's view, that's not the same as what they were requesting me to do, and it doesn't cure the concern that they have, or it doesn't address the concern they have, but I stand by my ruling. I just wanted to make a record that I included within my advisements, specifically yesterday, that if anyone hears somebody else talking about the case, even if that somebody who's talking about the case is a juror, they need to tell my staff so that my staff can then tell me they need to tell my staff that they want to talk to me. And then I said, even if that's happened in the past, you need to tell my staff so that my staff will let me know that you want to talk to me. So just wanted to make a record about that. Is there anything else that we need to talk about? Anyone? No. Okay. See you tomorrow. Thank you. The court will be in